neighbors. Welcome tonight. We're happy to see you. We started out
still need
this with a big game. Oh, yeah, I guess I need a phone. So welcome everybody and those online, and I don't know, is this on?
Yeah, I turned it on.
All right. Yes, I don't, must be a light there. Okay. So anyway, we're continuing on with the series here. And I think you'll find it very interesting tonight. But I just wanted to share with you a little bit of how our week got started on Monday. So the week got started on Monday where Scott was scheduled to give a talk on food addiction at the Campbell Community Center. And that's over in Eugene. And guess what? 38 people showed up, which was a really wonderful crowd of people. The goal is to keep growing the tribe. The week before, I gave a session at Willamette Lane with the construction there. There were like 3 people that showed up. And it's not very easy to get to Willamette Lane right now. In fact, I had to ask one of the construction people, how do you get to this place? You know, everything's blocked off. But I figured it out eventually. Other than that, things are kind of humming along just fine. And let's see, what else did I want to tell you? Does anybody have any questions or anything that's burning on your mind? How many more classes in this series?
Just one more. We have physical activity with Kathy Meldrum, physical therapist.
So there's one more class with Kathy Meldrum, physical therapist, and that'll be the end of this series. And then it's going to be a cooking month. Yes.
Yeah, cooking class every Tuesday. After that, you can. There's still some spots opened up. It's on the newsletter. It's also information flyer in the back, and then in November we'll start the series over again. Here. And there's Kathy right there. She's teaching next week.
And Tamara's cooking classes will be from 6 till 8, not 7 till 8:30. So they'll start a little bit earlier, and those are there's a fee for those classes.
It doesn't go to us, it's for the supplies and everything. And Tamara represents the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, Food for Life. So
we're sort of hosting her.
Yeah.
It's her own program.
So that's good. And then tomorrow we're doing natural grocers, vegetable fiber. That's an afternoon kind of class. And that's been going well. It'll be our 3rd class. I think there were 28 people showed up the first class, and then 18. You know, some people come and they say, okay, I've had enough, or I know what I need to do with one class, because the message keeps being the same message. You know, there's a spectrum of eating from animal products over here to plant products over here. And, you know, there's the standard American diet, which is really over here, sad. And then you can eat over more in this direction. And I tell people that the more you eat over to the whole food plant-based, the healthier you'll be. That's where a lot of the diets like the Mediterranean diet, the Mind diet, the DASH diet, those are all plant-based diets. In my mind, they're not the ideal diet, but they're what most people in the medical profession feel would be beneficial for most people, and what they think most people will do. They don't all think, most doctors don't want to change what they're eating. And so it's hard for them to say, eat just plants, even though the science shows that that's probably the healthiest choice. And not everybody is fanatical about it as yours truly. Yeah, but I love what I eat. I've been taking pictures at night of what my wife has been making, and that's kind of fun. So I've talked enough. We've got a special speaker today on substance misuse and health. I've heard Elisabeth from the county public health. I'll let her introduce what she does. before. I love listening to her. She's educational, and I think you'll enjoy the experience. So thank you for coming.
Well, hello. How's the volume? Is that okay? I'm not used to projecting. This is a mind bender here. It feels like it should project, but it doesn't actually. So Debbie, are you okay in the back? Good. Okay. So my name is Elisabeth Maxwell. I work for Lane County Public Health, and I've been volunteering here. Gosh, it's maybe been a year. I don't know. I haven't really tracked it. I don't know. I don't remember a date.
Probably closer to 2.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm on the board. I run your library, and so that's probably where you see me most of the time is running the library. And then sometimes I'm able to do a little outreach when we have events. But my full-time job is with Lane County Public Health, and I work in the prevention department. And so I like to say we work on preventing all the things. So tobacco prevention, substance use prevention, suicide prevention, problem gambling prevention, and I'll touch on those a little bit as I get going here. And then somebody asked, just most of us, especially those of us who work for the Eugene plant-based providers, we'll talk to you about, how we came to be plant-based. And so I can give a brief preview of that. I grew up in Montana. We don't need to talk about what decade or anything, but I as a teenager, had a kind of epiphany and became vegetarian. And at that time, I thought I was doing it was for animals, it was for ethical reasons. I thought I was doing the best that I could. I knew about vegan, but it was pretty hard at that time in Montana. I ate a lot of baked potatoes and iceberg lettuce salads at restaurants and family events. So that was not amazing. And I was very fortunate. My mom just kind of went with it. And so she accommodated it. She would make their food and then make my food. She became really adept at making tin foil tents in the middle, or a brick, like a fence in the middle of a casserole. So their enchiladas on one side, my enchiladas on the other side, their lasagna on one side, mine, not perfect, right? I'm sure there was some seepage, but I really am grateful that she, it wasn't a battle. She was very kind and nice about it. And then I met my husband. I converted him pretty quickly. I do all the cooking, and so maybe he just said, "Well, I guess if I'm going to eat, I don't know. I got to do what she's giving me." But he understood, right? And then we raised our kids as vegetarians. And I sometimes think back and wish that I had become plant-based sooner, and I, wrestle with a little bit of guilt about that and think about all of this stupid cage-free, all the money I wasted on cage-free eggs all those years. And then come to find out it makes no difference, right? It's the chickens are not being treated any better. So that was a fallacy that I learned about. But a few years ago, I actually went to the classes in Roseburg that Charlie started many years ago. And Debbie, that's how I met Debbie. Debbie was also attending the classes. And so kind of had more of an epiphany like, oh, I could do better. I could do more. I could do more for animals. I could do more for my health. I could do more for the environment, more for climate change. And so I became plant-based. And fortunately, 30 some years later, my husband was like, okay, I guess we're doing that. All right, we're doing that. And so he very quickly just went plant-based. My adult daughter, who doesn't live with us, also went. And so that's awesome. She's trying to convert her boyfriend right now, which is awesome. Disappointingly, my son is still just a vegetarian, but there's hope. So we're hoping he'll come over to our side at some point. But that's kind of, and I did the same thing that we talk about, when I first became vegan, the transition foods, you're like, oh, BioLife makes a cheese. Oh, there's these burgers. Oh, well, just like Scott has talked about, I'm pretty sodium sensitive. And so most of that stuff is pretty hard for me. It actually processed foods they don't feel good to me. I just, I eat it and then I just end up feeling it for a long time afterwards. And so I pretty quickly moved out of that, and now I eat more like what Charlie describes, my daughter says we eat like rabbits, and so giant bowls of fresh vegetables, giant salads, whole grains, legumes, beans. We eat some tofu, tempeh, but trying to keep everything as whole and unprocessed as possible. And that's when I feel the best and when I'm the happiest, I think, mentally. So that's kind of how I got here, and I feel really fortunate. And I'll talk later, but my dad has actually expressed some interest, and I think he's gonna come along. So I'm feeling very grateful. I feel like I'm having an effect on my own family, and so that's really awesome. You can go to the next slide. So just showing us where, we talk about the pillars of lifestyle medicine, you got this, and so that pink arrow is just showing you where we are tonight. So we are in minimizing harmful substances. Next slide. Yeah, and so social determinants of health, and so wow, that's hard for me to see, but I can see it here. So social determinants of health, these are just all of the things that have an impact on people's health, right? So you can see hunger. Obviously, if someone does not have access to food, then their health is not going to be very good. Access to care, housing, mental health services, and living in this community. I'm sure you all know. So far, all of these things that I've said, right? Huge impacts. We don't have enough infrastructure. The systems are not where we would like them to be. Transportation, if you have to rely on public transportation to get groceries or to get your kids to the doctor, that's rough, right? It's doable, but it creates a stress and an impact on your life that, you might not have to have if you had that differently. Education, income and jobs, and then social isolation, right? In the last 10 years or so, the Surgeon General came out about 10 years ago and talked about social isolation and what an impact that can have on someone's health. And then environment and safety, right? And so what do we experience? Knock on wood, I feel like we've been in a weird little place in Lane County. The wildfires have not been terrible. I hate to say it, I don't want to jinx it, but I feel like the air has been pretty clean this summer. But when our environment is not, when we can't go outside and exercise, that drives me. I have a really hard time functioning if I can't get outside. And so when we have those periods of time where we have a week where the air is not safe for us to recreate outside, I have a really hard time with that. And I'm sure lots of people do. And also, just physical safety, right? There's some people who, experience homelessness, they don't feel safe, they don't have a safe place to sleep. And so all of those things can have an impact on somebody's risk of using risky substances, things like alcohol, tobacco. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So that's what this slide is just showing you, is that as the social determinants of health, as those go down, substance risk increases, right? And that makes sense, right? And especially, right, if you just had one thing, if you just like, oh, my transportation's not great, you maybe could deal with that, right? But if your transportation's a problem and your food's a problem and you don't have access to a healthy income, you start to see how, it's hard for people to cope. And so they might turn to things that are not the best, not the healthiest things to turn to. Next slide. Also, I just have to say, I like color. I don't know if you noticed that, but so I try to make everything as colorful as possible. So there'll be some cute animal pictures. I also like cute and colorful. So this one is, how do we talk about people who suffer from addiction? And so there's kind of this old school of people talking about calling people addicts, right? And if you call someone an addict, it makes it seem unchangeable, right? It makes it seem like that's who they are, and that's not who they are. We should say people who suffer from something, because then it's changeable, right? It has hope then. People living with something, people living with substance use, people living with tobacco usage. And it's important because people struggle with addiction is not who they are, and struggles with addiction are not permanent. Lots of people recover. How many of you know an ex-smoker in your life, right? That people recover, and provides hope. Next slide. Here's my cute animal pictures. So octopus. So addictive and the pictures have nothing to do with what's on the slide. I just like to make everything pretty, and everything should be pretty and cute and colorful. So addictive substances. So alcohol, legal and illegal drugs, tobacco, nicotine, food, and there's another one coming up. Go ahead and hit the next one. So these are some other things that people can have issues with. Problem gambling, in my department, we actually get some funding from the Lottery Commission to work on gambling prevention. So, gambling is fine, recreational for some people. For some people, it can be a problem, right? It can turn into something. And so Emergence is a counseling center in town, and they actually offer problem gambling treatment free of charge for anyone suffering from that. And then we go into schools and go into outreach events and try to just educate the community, and if you start paying attention to problem gambling, like before I worked in this, I didn't pay a lot of attention. You start seeing all the ads, you start seeing DraftKings, sports betting, all those weird little lottery games that people can get on their phones. It can be entertaining, but people can get into trouble with it. Gaming, people can be addicted to gaming, shopping, sex, exercise. Next slide. So just a brief definition of addiction, and this comes from the DSM-4, 5, Pam, what are we on, 4 or 5? 5?
We're 5, yeah.
5, okay.
5
so this is directly from that. And so this is just how someone gets diagnosed with actually having an addiction or a substance use disorder. So having uncontrolled use, impaired control, social problems, and these things don't always happen, right? You have to have a number of these, usually for it to actually be an addiction. Withdrawal symptoms, so actually having some kind of physical withdrawal, and sometimes that's hard. That's hard to sort out with things like food or problem gambling, but often people do report feeling those things. Dangerous use that results in something that's harmful to you or others. Excessive time, right? People spend more time than they want to on it. Unsuccessful attempts to cut back, making a daily pledge and saying, oh, I'm not going to do this. And then all of a sudden the day goes on and they find themselves doing the thing that they really didn't want to be doing. And continuing use despite negative consequences. Next slide. So this is just briefly, just giving, that's an axolotl, in case you didn't know. I recommend looking up videos of axolotls. They are adorable. So it's like a little walking salamander thing. I think they're in Mexico and they're pink and their faces often look like they're smiling just naturally. So in Oregon within the last year, this is adult use, 25% of people reported illicit drug use in the last month. 33% reporting cannabis use in the past year. That's 1/3. That's kind of a lot. And again, right, it doesn't mean that's problematic. It's just like, that's a snapshot. That's just saying the people reporting use. 4% reporting prescription drug misuse in the past year. 58% reporting alcohol use. And again, a bunch of people just recreationally, they're fine, they don't have a problem. But it just gives you kind of a snapshot that it is ubiquitous in our society. But 24% reporting binge alcohol use. That's 1/4 of us. So that's something to pay attention to. And then 23% reporting that they've been diagnosed with a substance use disorder. 13% reporting alcohol use disorder. And that number with the 16% of adults reporting cigarette use, that's like the minimum. So if you start then going up by population, age, LGBTQ, certain ethnicities, because big tobacco targets those communities, and so then the tobacco usage goes up. And then if you factor in something like vaping, it can get even more. And that's something that we get, schools reach out to us all the time telling us that they're having a huge problem with kids vaping in school. And so kids, because they believed what big tobacco has told them, don't understand that, oh, there's nicotine in there, that's addictive. They're trying to get you hooked on this. And the tobacco companies, I mean, there's been letters that have come out where they've said, oh, we have to replace the people who die, and so we got to get this number of kids hooked because we got to replace the people who die from the deadly substance that we sell. So, next slide. So I just throw this in here just because when you're in your home, right, you can control what a serving looks like, right? When you're out and about, this can get pretty dicey sometimes, right? A bottle, right, 12 ounces of alcohol by volume beer. So it's in a bottle, so you can kind of depend on that, the other malt liquor. But when you're served a glass of wine or a shot if it is at 5 ounces, is it 1.5 ounces? And what's the concern that we're worried about? Driving is, right, impaired driving. I mean, there's lots of things to be concerned about, but impaired driving is, if you're being overserved. And OLCC in Oregon is pretty good. They do a lot of education, and we do that some in my department too. We actually do trainings for, it's called responsible beverage service, and so we try to train servers so that they don't overserve. But 1 o'clock in the morning downtown, I imagine all kinds of things happen. So just something to be aware of. Next slide. Adorable, right? Nothing to do with what's on the slide. So I just throw this in here just for folks to just kind of know about, right? So moderate drinking is considered 2 drinks or less a day for men, 1 drink or less a day for women. And this is does not this is only reported by men and women, so that's just the way it's reported. And then binge drinking, thanks Debbie. Binge drinking 5 or more drinks in 2 hours for men. I don't know about all of you, but 4 or more, I'd be dead. So I would just be in the hospital. And then heavy drinking, 4 or more, 8+ drinks per week for women. So just, something to think about, right? Just a snapshot for yourself, like, oh, how much, am I drinking? Or somebody in your life, right? Some of the information might be useful for that. Next slide. So, health risks associated with alcohol. You'll notice that these are all very similar to a lot of the stuff that Scott and Charlie and our other speakers talk about. So leading causes of death in the U.S., heart disease, cancer, accidents, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, kidney disease, chronic liver diseases, all related to alcohol, right? And can all be fixed if you didn't drink and ate a whole food plant-based diet, right? So that's kind of interesting that it feels often like all paths lead to one place. And here's where, I wasn't sure where I would put this part, but my dad just reached out to me, it's been about 6 weeks ago, and he got diagnosed with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is pretty common in the United States. It's not an uncommon thing. He's not a huge drinker or anything, but his numbers were pretty high, and his doctor was pretty concerned. And so, as Scott and Charlie have talked about, doctors don't get a lot of nutrition advice, education. And so my dad's doctor said, stop drinking and lose some weight. Didn't give him any more than that, right? Just stop drinking and lose it. Didn't tell him how to lose weight. And unfortunately, my dad knows that I'm whole food plant-based, and so he reached out and he was like, hey, what do you think? And I very confidently said, I think I can help you. I think I can make some impact on that. I'm actually leaving tomorrow to go visit them. They still live in Montana, and I'm going there to spend a week with them to help them with their food. But my dad just texted me today and said that he had his liver run again and that everything is better just in the 5 weeks that he and I have been talking on the phone, and I've been giving him advice. And these were people who were eating the standard American diet, not plant-based at all. He's still in that transition. He'll call me and say, oh, I found this burger, Amy's entree is pretty good. And I'm like, okay, yeah, transition, So I'm trying to get him, to do a little better. But it's pretty amazing. So that's what this diet can do. Charlie has all of his letters and emails and everything, and I feel like I have one now too. I have my dad, and Charlie was kind enough to talk to me one night about just, it's a little nervous, made me a little nervous to, I'm not a healthcare provider, so I wanted to be careful about what I was doing. So, but made me very happy to get that text from him today. Next slide. So, cannabis. Sorry, it has nothing to do with the slide. But health risks associated with cannabis use, so it can definitely have an effect on mental health. So daily or near daily use of cannabis can contribute to dependence and mental health problems over time, especially with youth. So kids who start way too young, still got that developing brain. Prefrontal cortex is still getting hooked up, still developing. So imagine daily use in a young person over years, can have a pretty profound effect. Driving, So at the county, we have something called the Fatal Crash Investigation Team. And so we take a look at all fatal crashes that occur on county roads. So county, not city, but county roads. And what I can tell you from looking at a number of medical examiner reports, it's almost always a cocktail when somebody's got substances involved. And what I mean is cannabis, alcohol, a couple prescription drugs, maybe some methamphetamine. It's never one thing anymore. It's never just like, oh, this person got overserved and they just drank and drove. It's almost always polysubstance use. And so, unfortunately, our young people tend to think cannabis is fine. I can, use a little cannabis and drive. Not true. Not true at all. And then there's respiratory effects. So our thinking in public health, we don't have quite as much science to back it up. But the thinking is, we know that tobacco smoke causes lung cancer and is associated with all other respiratory diseases. It makes sense that if you're combusting something and breathing it into your lungs, it's going to have the same effects. And again, young people tend to not think that. And pregnancy, right? It definitely crosses the placenta, and so definitely has an effect on an unborn baby and on breastfeeding as well. So we try to educate pregnant people and people who are breastfeeding that it can have that effect, so that it's safer to not use that while pregnant or breastfeeding. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to get to food, which is probably why a lot of you are here. So how is food related to other substances of misuse? I think it'll pop up if you hit it again. Yeah. So alcohol and other drugs affect the prefrontal cortex, which is where you make your decisions, right? Which can negatively impact impulse control and emotional regulation, making it harder to resist cravings. And so sometimes people will report, well, when I drink, I want a French fry and burgers, or, when I drink, I want onion rings. When I drink, I want, cake from Sweet Life, whatever. You have some association, and the alcohol kind of takes, you've decided earlier in the day, oh, I didn't really want to do that. You throw alcohol into the mix, and all of a sudden, stuff starts seeming like a good idea that maybe wasn't a good idea 8 hours earlier, right? I mean, that's true of many things with alcohol. And so, just one substance can impact cravings for another substance. And sometimes it's just that you have an association, right? Probably lots of us have, some kind of funky associations from college or high school, and so that can be hard to battle those things. If you hit it again, the last one. And memory and learning can be affected, if you use any of these substances over a long period of time, it's definitely not great for your body and not good for your brain. Next slide. Okay, so anybody know who that guy is? It's Wolverine. It's Hugh Jackman. And so whenever Hugh Jackman does one of these movies, where he has to get in fantastic shape, and, you start seeing all the stories about him eating terrible, usually it's chicken breast, right? That he's living on chicken breast and broccoli. And he says somehow this ad is, we're supposed to believe that he got looking like this by eating those potato chips. He's a liar. So I don't like that. That makes me disrespect him a little bit. We have this book in the library, Salt, Sugar, and Fat. Michael Moss has written a couple. So he's got some great exposés of the, we call, big tobacco is like what tobacco does to advertise its product. It's a deadly product to people. And it turns out that the food industry took a lot of pages right out of big tobacco. And so they have all this science that they've done, and he exposes this, that they're, you ever wonder, this ad, bet you can't just eat one. Well, they actually engineer it that way, right? They do science on the mouthfeel and the taste and how much sodium and how much salt and how much, crunch, so that it is really hard to eat just one, right? And so the solution for many people is don't start, right? Just don't, right? Because it's really hard to just eat one. We also got some books back there on ultra-processed foods. So ultra-processed foods, anything that's got more than 5 ingredients, and that it's got salt, oil, fat, or sugar in the top 5 ingredients, or stuff that's unrecognizable, unpronounceable. So, you think, this sounds like high school chemistry. What is this stuff in here, right? Is that a bean? Is that a grain? Is that a vegetable? Is that a fruit? No. Maybe not eat it then. Next slide. So It's not, I mean, probably somebody could be, I don't know, maybe Scott or Charlie or Debbie know of someone who's become addicted to grapes or something. It's just hard to imagine, right? You know, could somebody eat more than 2 apples? I don't, you know, maybe. You know, could you, you could, grains. I think grains, like when they say a serving of grains is a half cup, probably many of us, don't stick to that half cup. But yeah, peppers, how much broccoli so you're probably not going to get addicted to these things. So you're just going to save yourself a world of trouble if you stick with these things. Next slide. So some strategies that we can use with unhealthy food issues. So breathing. Some of you, I don't know if any of you, does anybody know who Thich Nhat Hanh is? Buddhist monk. And I've read quite a few of his, I don't know if I've read any of his books cover to cover, and maybe they're designed that way. I just kind of dip in and out of them, which I really like. And something that he says is, your breath is always with you, right? Your breath is always there with you. And I find in my daily life, there is so many opportunities to use it, right? So many opportunities to need patience. I went and got my COVID shot yesterday, and I started doing this new thing where when I walk into some situation and I kind of think, I think this is going to take a while. I set a timer on my phone because I'm just like, am I just being impatient? I kind of want to know, like, how long is this going to take? 35 minutes from the time I got in line till the time I walked out. I don't know. It's perspective, right? 35, I don't know. That's pretty good. Or I don't know. It didn't feel great. So but your breath is always with you, right? And so when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling any kind of feelings, your breath is there with you. Pam's done some great classes on breathing. And so that is always, it's just always there, right? It doesn't cost you anything. I love things that don't cost anything, so it doesn't cost you anything, and it's yours. You have it. And mind the gap. So probably many of you have had the experience where you have good intentions, usually in the morning, right? In the morning, you say to yourself, well, okay, I'm going to eat this healthy food. We'll just stick to food for right now, but I'm going to eat these healthy foods today. And then as the day goes on, things start happening, and you're at work and there's donuts, or you drive past something that calls out to you. And so there's this concept of trying to figure out that there's a small space in there. There's a small space before you make the decision. And sometimes it's really hard to find, and it doesn't feel like that gap is there. But if you start looking for it, you might find that it is there. And that's what you're looking for is, can I find that gap? And can I make it last a little bit? Can I, just find it and then stay in that gap? A craving doesn't last that long. They've done research. I don't remember exactly how long, but cravings generally do not last, maybe 6 to 10 minutes. Can you get through 6 to 10, right? We all have phones. You can set a timer. I'm going to wait 10 minutes. I'm going to wait 6 minutes. I'm going to, right? And then making a plan, right? So if you really are committed that there's something that you don't want to engage in, what's your plan? Is there somebody that you can call? Can you go for a walk? What can you do if you decide that you don't want to do whatever it is you're trying not to do? And then having support. Are there people that you can turn to, people that you can talk to, somebody that you can reach out to and say, hey, I'm really struggling, is there something, that you could help me, can you talk to me for a little bit, what could you do? And then lastly, it's not the end of the world, right? It's a process. Be kind to yourself. I think that black and white thinking is really what can get us into trouble. Does it help anything if you do something and you're like, oh, it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do? What does it help to beat yourself up, right? It's just kind of wasted time. Just get back up, right? The nice thing about humans is what happens the next day? You get to start all over, right? Man, it's right. And I read some book once that said, we're all just an experiment of one to ourselves. So you're just experimenting with yourself, right? You're like, oh, this, I didn't want to eat those French fries. That didn't work. Maybe something else will work. I know that on Fridays, they bring donuts to work, and I have a hard time with those donuts. Right. Well, we're assuming that they're vegan donuts. So I'm just going to make that assumption. We have Voodoo, so they do exist in our community. But being kind to yourself, right? You're a process. It's going to take some time. You know, being mean to yourself is not helpful. Next slide. So I stole this from Pam. Just tell you. So between stimulus and response, there is a space, and that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. And that's what I'm talking about, that space, right? That space, something has gotten you, something, you're feeling stimulated, you're feeling like, oh, you know, some part of your brain is thinking, you know what's going to make this better? Plant-based Ben and Jerry's is going to make this so much better, right? There's just so many, you know, for good or for bad, there's just so many foods out there right now where, you know, when I first was a vegetarian, things were not great. And now, you know, my daughter she's on a quest to find all of the accidental vegan foods, you know, and, you know, she's at an age where she can do that. And so Oreos, accidentally vegan. She's so happy about that, right? You know, but, you know, if you know what's the serving size of Oreos? How many people can eat 2 Oreos? That's pretty hard, right? It almost seems like the food companies are just trying to get us to fail, right? And also, it's in their best interest if we eat more, because if we eat all of it, then we have to go buy more. Wow, it seems insidious. Next slide. And if you hit it, the rest will come up. Winnie the Pooh in the Rain. Who doesn't love that? And so Rain, Tara Brock and Judson Brewer, you can find both of them have YouTube videos and books. We have one of Judson Brewer's books, I think. I don't remember what it's called. The Craving Mind. Yeah, we've got The Craving Mind. I don't know if it's in or not. But this is just another way of looking at that other slide that I showed you. So if you have something that you're struggling with, trying to recognize, okay, what happens when this thing happens? You know, when I engage in food behaviors that I don't really want to, what happens for me? Are there situations? Are there people that I deal with? Is it stress from work? Is it, you know, whatever it is, you're trying to figure out, like, what is the thing that's making me engage in this behavior that I'm not loving so much? You can allow it, right, going back to that science experiment, that you're a science experiment, allow it to happen and just kind of step back a little bit and observe. What happens when this happens? You know, like, you're not going to die if you eat French fries, you know, immediately that one time, or a donut. So you could just take a time and say, what happens? Oftentimes what people notice when you can go into investigating, often what happens is sometimes people say, wow, I'm doing this and it doesn't even taste, it doesn't taste like what I want it to taste like. It's not really giving me what I want, right? It's not, I don't feel healthy, I don't feel good, and it doesn't even taste that good, right? It's not, so, you know, just noticing those things. And then the nurture part again, right? Being very forgiving of yourself, and just taking a time and saying, oh, I'm just gonna see how this plays out. I'm gonna see. And then that also gives you the opportunity, like, to have some thoughts. Okay, so I have a craving, I have some thoughts about some food that I don't think is the healthiest for me. Can I find that gap? What can I do? Is there some tools I can use, right? You're just trying to figure out what you can do for yourself while being very forgiving of yourself while you do it. Next slide. Okay, I love this. So this is new, if any of you have seen this presentation before. I don't know how I learned about this, but I ran across it maybe 6 months ago. Pam, do you know about the butterfly hug? I get to teach the psychologist something. Oh my, I didn't invent it. But the butterfly hug method was developed by a scientist during her work with survivors of Hurricane Pauline in 1998, and it comes from EMDR, which you don't necessarily need to know, but that's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. If you want to talk more about that, you're going to have to turn to Pam, because I won't be able to tell you much about that. But it is a type of therapy that actually can be helpful with people dealing with addictions. So it could be something. Go to the next slide. Okay, so we're going to watch a brief video and you can all practice. So if you're getting tired, this might help you. But again, what we're looking for is we're looking for a disruption, right? You're trying to find that gap. You're trying to find something, a tool that you can use. And so what can you do? This might be something, and just in general, right? I'm feeling stressed. My nervous system is feeling all jangled up. And so what could I do? So there should be some music coming in a second. They're also really young, so maybe that feels right to them. But I love that this is kids, though. I love that this is kids doing this. And this is actually something that has been used pretty effectively with kids. So if you think about kids with behavior problems, what an amazing, my daughter, I just think about when my daughter was a toddler. If I had known about this, I think it could have been a game changer for us. She was a pretty tantrumy toddler, and we were young. So I just think, just a tool that you could have, super effective for yourself. So I just, offer it, take it if you like it, and if not, don't. But I just keep sharing this with people because I think it's really just a nice tool, and I love the name of it. I just think they could call it a unicorn hug. I would like that even better. But the butterfly, that makes sense. So and then I put Oregon silver spot, actual butterfly from Oregon. So I love learning about naming stuff. I saw a heron this morning at Mount Pisgah, and it was a different kind of heron. I don't know what kind yet, but I'm hoping to look it up later. Has anybody seen green herons? So cool. Yeah, so cool. We're so fortunate where we live and get to see all of the things that we see. Next slide. So what is the butterfly? Isn't that gorgeous? Just gorgeous. I think that's a monarch on some kind of fluffy purple flower that I feel like I've seen here, but I don't know what it is. So engages the parasympathetic nervous system, which can promote relaxation and stress regulation. Bilateral stimulation can help regulate the nervous system, right? So that's what you're looking for. You're looking, so when you feel that craving, your system is dysregulated, right? That is what's happening. Your system is dysregulated, and your head and your body are trying to regulate it, and they're regulating it in a way that you don't like. There's a part of you that said, this is not what I want to be doing. I don't want to do this. And so you're kind of at war within yourself. This is a way that you can try to stop that from happening. So it can reduce anxiety, promote feelings of well-being. So I encourage you to try it. It's hard to do driving, I will say. I can do it one-handed, which I still think is good, but two-handed, apparently you have to drive. So next slide. So what's the bravest thing you've ever said? This is from a book that's really a beautiful book, right? Yeah, beautiful. What's the bravest thing you've ever said? Asked the boy. Help, said the horse. Next slide. So here's just a couple resources. This always makes me so happy that this animation works in here because you just never know. So the bears hugging, I love, and they're adorable. But I've read both of these books. We don't have them in our library, but they are available at the Eugene Public Library. And what I like about Julie M. Simon, she's plant-based, so I like that. She is also very compassionate, very forgiving, and has a lot of tools. So I recommend, and I think these are both, I feel like I listened to one of these. So I think they're available to listen to and also to check out. Okay, awesome. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. And did you like it? Yeah, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, next slide. And so just more resources and a cute cat. It's not my cat. I don't have a cat. It's just a cat. And so Overeaters Anonymous is available. There are actually local groups that meet in Lane County, still meet in person. You know, COVID, this is a 12-step group. And so before COVID, most groups were in person, and then COVID happened, and lots of groups, just like everybody else, had to shift to having an online presence. And so they are pretty amazing. You can, if you wake up at 2 in the morning, if you're a nighttime eater and you wake up at 2 in the morning and you're like, oh, there are meetings at 2 in the morning. It might be in Australia, it might be in Germany, but they'll tell you they have a whole website, which I've listed up here. There is support available, and then there are local groups who meet in person. So it's a pretty, it's not for everybody. Again, I always say, take it if it works, don't take it if it doesn't. But if you're struggling, this could be something that could be really helpful. Next slide. So just a note on eating disorders. So people can have anorexia or bulimia or binge eating disorder. Avoidant restrictive food intake disorder is pretty specific. I would turn to Pam if you have any questions. And orthorexia is one that Charlie's actually talked about, that he says he's been accused of having for eating too healthy. And I don't know if I've been accused of it. I've definitely gotten some weirdness at work that I feel like is sometimes, when I'm like, yeah, I don't eat that thing. And it's not meat, it's that I don't like processed foods. And so then people, start thinking, oh, maybe you're disordered in some way. But orthorexia is a real thing, and people can have it. All of these need to be diagnosed by a therapist. So these are not just things you don't want to diagnose yourself. But if you have any concerns, seeing a therapist or talking to your medical provider, is probably in order. Next slide. So I noticed in a lot of the literature on the plant-based movement, sometimes people refer to foods as being clean or dirty. And I just don't think that that's super helpful. It's not a compassionate way to think about ourselves and what we're eating. And so I just have some concerns about that. So implications of thinking about food in terms of purity, it can cause feelings of shame related to your food choices or access. That black and white thinking, I think, is just not helpful. Demonizing certain foods, right? It's impossible for all of us to be 100% health, right? We all get put in situations. We travel. We have to have family dinners. We have work events. We have stuff where we're do the best we can, right? We cannot be perfect. My daughter, when she was a teenager, she tried to be vegan a few times, and she'd get really upset with herself if she deviated, and I would say, the vegan police are not coming. Nobody cares, right? It's just you. This is your thing. You do it for you, right? There's nobody who's judging you for how you're doing it. And I just think it could have some possible effects on mental health, right? If you're thinking about things in terms of clean or dirty. Next slide. I just feel like we all say that, I think we put a similar slide in all of us, but eating a rainbow. So just trying to think about all the foods that you're eating in a day or in a week. And that's in there for my daughter. She says my husband and I eat like rabbits, and we do. And so there's our rabbits. And yeah, I try to, I don't know, we could, Will Bolsewicz says, what does he say? Try to eat 30 different foods a week. I feel like we do I get a CSA box, so I get stuff that I didn't plan on. I don't know if we eat 30. I guess if we include fresh herbs, right? Do fresh herbs count? Then maybe I get 30. Yeah, I don't know. But, but it's a good goal. So, okay, next slide. So, is that cow adorable? So we could have a little discussion. How is food different from other addictive substances or similar? Anybody have any thoughts on differences or similarities? You can't just walk away from food, right? Yeah, we have to eat every day. Most of us eating 2 to 3 to 4 times a day. We need it to survive. So, people can say for alcohol or cannabis or other kinds of drugs or tobacco, we don't need any of those things to live. We do need food to live. And so we got to figure out what's the place in our lives for it. Were you gonna say? The cravings are the same. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so the cravings can feel the same. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm just finishing the book Dopamine Nation. I'm doing a little behind the times.
Scott, do you have the
we need
microphone?
food to survive.
Is it picking it? We have this
Oh,
microphone on, so I think we're okay.
Okay.
Are we okay?
Just talk loud when you're
Right.
commenting out in the audience.
We need food to survive, but we don't need white sugar and white flour. There are ways that we can, she talks about binding, self-binding. In the same way you might say, I'm not gonna eat anything that's not vegan. That saved me from 1,000,000 calories. If you're at a party and there's cookies and cakes, they're not vegan. And if you add something else, like I'm not gonna eat sugar, I'm not gonna eat white flour, then that's what OA recommends too.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, and there's different sections of Overeaters Anonymous. There is another one, Food Addicts in Recovery. I think they are pretty strict about that, white flour and white sugar. Yeah, so I think that's an excellent point. Yeah, Debbie?
And I like to, I get really tired of people telling me that my choices are so limited because I'm vegan. So what did you just say? What did you just say?
I don't know.
And to me, it's broader and more open than it is closed. And I just want to keep on getting that message out there or thinking about what we do like that. Like if we're limiting white sugar and it's opening ourselves to this abundant health and energy.
Yeah, I think that seems a pretty consistent thing. Charlie talks about it, Scott talks about it, you talk about it. I definitely feel that way. So not all stores have this. I think Fred Meyer has it. But go stand in front of the Bob's Red Mill section at Fred Meyer. It's like this and like this, and it's all stuff that we can eat, right? It's all whole grains. It's all, they've got breakfast cereals and soup mixes. I'm not saying that all of it is absolutely healthy, but for whole grains, there is a ton of whole grains there.
And one more thing, that when people say, oh, you can't eat this, and I want to go, yes, I can. I choose not to because I feel much better without it.
Yeah.
So I really push back on that. You can't eat this.
Everybody does it differently. I know one thing for myself is I feel pretty connected to my food because I do eat, not all, but, like my husband and I eat a lot of fresh vegetables and fruit every night. So I'm chopping and cutting and processing. There's days when I feel like a prairie farm wife. And we don't waste. I've tried really hard not to waste. We have a neighbor and she gave us a gallon bag of fresh jalapeno peppers. My husband likes hot food. I was just like, what? Can you freeze these? I pickled them. Not a quick pickle, not a canning. I don't do that. I'm scared of that. but just did it on the stove, cooked pickle, and he's been eating through them, and and cooked them, and so then it cooked down into a saucepan. You just have to get creative, right? I had a tomato plant that we grew this year, and also vegetables are magical. I don't know, just feel we've never had very much success growing stuff, and so this year we got a little tomato, a little cherry tomato start like this. That sucker's as tall as I am now, and unfortunately, like it's full of green tomatoes right now, and I don't think we're gonna have enough hot weather for them to turn. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to waste those.
That's okay, you just put them in a box.
Well, what I did is I asked my AI friend, the Google AI friend, what to do. I said, can you eat green tomato? I know you can eat the big ones, but I said, can you eat the little ones? And it said yes. And so I chopped them up and made a pico de gallo out of it. Awesome, like totally fine. So I feel like that keeps me more connected to my food and more just that act of, chopping and cutting. And sometimes people say, oh, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for that. As time goes on, you get faster, right? I don't think chopping the stuff that we eat for dinner, I don't think it takes, most of the time, 20 minutes. If I'm making like a big cabbage salad or stir fry or something, maybe 30 minutes. Like I'm pretty fast. I did stab myself, so that did happen this weekend. I'm pretty good. I don't do it very often, but I did give myself a good poke this weekend. So a little danger there, but it doesn't happen that often. Okay. And how does our current food climate or environment affect our food choices? Sad. Yeah. 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 It is. I feel like for us, because we've been vegetarian for such a, it just took most of the fast food stuff, like Pam was saying. It just like, oh, that's nothing there for, whatever, Jack in the Box. There just wasn't anything there. My husband still does like Taco Bell, and he's learned how to order it vegan. I just don't like it.
I bet that driving by like farms, that was sad. Okay, see, we went camping in northeastern Oregon, and there are so many farms. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, it's just not good.
It's hard, right? And it's hard, because so many people
Why don't they know?
Right. I think about that too. But yeah, I was a vegetarian for decades, and just I knew things. I chose not to know things. I know that that's what happened, and I've tried to process that with my kids a little bit, and kind of apologized and said, oh, I wish that we would have raised you vegan. I wish. And actually, interestingly, both of them said that they felt like they went through different times of being bullied for just being vegetarian, and they both said, oh, it would have been worse if you had us being vegan. So
There you go.
I don't know.
I didn't know how parents can do it. I honestly do not.
Say that again.
I don't know how a parent can raise a child vegan or vegetarian. I just don't know how that can be done. Thinking back to raising my son, I just do not know how it can be done.
Vegetarian, yeah. Vegetarian was pretty. I don't know. Just figured out how to
It's
do it.
easier until they get away from you.
Yes.
But then,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is challenging. It's challenging, and also, there's a lot of, we definitely got pushed back. My parents were good. My husband's parents were not okay with it. They, I had all the things said to me, oh, you're going to have unhealthy kids, they're not going to get what they need. They don't get enough protein, all those criticisms that young parents enjoy so much from their in-laws. So but just the food environment. Think about kids in schools, has anybody seen a school lunch recently?
Chicken nuggets, pizza.
Yeah, so, some places are trying. Debbie, did you want to talk about the milk thing at all? I know that, aren't the California schools trying to make plant-based milks mandatory?
for the whole nation, I think it's. So there's a switch for good, switch the number for good.com. So Dotsy Bausch is behind that effort and she's a Olympic cyclist. And anyway, Switch for Good working heavily with our government, as is Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, to get better food into our school lunches and particularly making the choice be broader than being forced to get a carton of milk, which lots of kids just, about 30% is just tossed into the trash. So it's a huge waste of money, and when kids drink it and they don't know that they're lactose intolerant, then they have brain fog and they can't study in school very well, so. There's a huge effort with Switch for Good. And actually, our group is going into Shasta Middle School. We have a pediatric cardiologist, and Tamara, our chef, is gonna do a cooking demonstration and talk about heart health. And so, there are schools even here that are really, they have a school garden and really trying to promote.
Yeah. And some of the medical systems are also changing, right? Isn't there been some pushes for hospitals to offer plant-based, to have that there has to be a plant-based option? I don't think here, but
Yeah, all the hospitals in New York, the hospital system has the default diet in all the hospitals is plant-based. And you have to ask for animal products, so the default is plant-based, and then, but then there's a push, the American Medical Association passed a resolution saying that all hospitals should get rid of processed meats and provide plant-based options, and hasn't been enforced or executed yet, but they put out that resolution in like 2017, a long time ago.
so some changes, not enough, but some, so. And then how about, how is a whole food plant-based living supported? Do any of you feel like it is supported in our society, or seeing some head
Farmers
shake?
market.
Farmers markets?
Farmers market. is
Yeah.
great. There's a lot of you can do, there's always awesome.
Yeah,
That's.
Where do you go in winter?
Well, that's, that's a little harder in winter. I get the perimeter of the grocery stores. I mostly stay in the vegetable and vegetable section. Yeah.
But there's only 1 month without a farmer's market now, because the winter market starts in February.
Wonderful.
yeah, and some of it is based on if you can afford things, right? So farmers markets tend to be, a little more expensive. We get a CSA that goes into the winter. So I feel like I think they stop in December, but some of those squashes, I think I've had squashes that hadn't eaten until January or February, and they were still fine.
They're still
So,
good.
yeah. Charlie?
Eugene plant-based providers and live lifestyle medicine.
That's where the support is.
Support, yeah, right.
It's little, Charlie, little.
That's accepting,
Mhm.
especially I find it here
Oh.
in Eugene,
Eugene, much more so than the rest of
and
the
like
country.
on the East Coast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If you go back to Georgia, where we came from, it's zero.
Yeah.
Zero. Okay, school lunches, it was a teacher, she'll tell you, they're
I'm
garbage.
sure they are the same here.
yeah. I mean, my kids are older now, but yeah, I remember some pretty horrifying food.
They tried,
Yeah.
with bags of carrots and they would just find little bags in the trash.
Yeah,
It's
Jane.
People who have SNAP benefits can go to the farmer's market and I think they get double bucks.
Yeah.
Oh, good, nice.
You have to go to the information booth, I think, I'm not sure.
And WIC has a similar benefit where they can get fresh food if you're on WIC, so.
And also, you mentioned Georgia, now we can see my memory. So building healthy communities, which, I think we are sort of part of our, and that's Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. So they have a monthly meeting that I go to online, and it's so hopeful because there are places all across our country who are doing these programs. And the last meeting was in Montgomery. This gal has started at all these meat restaurants in town, she's approached them to say, hey, can we have a vegan night? And it has caught on amazingly. And it was a great episode. And then also the Food for Life Construction Program, they are seated across our country too. So if you, I feel really hopeful. I mean, I know in general, it's still not happening, but I see all these people all over the place looking wanted to support the health of our populace and help the animals and the planet. And it's really exciting. So I purposely look for that because there's enough bad news.
Yeah.
You go to natural grocers throughout the country,
Uh-huh.
their organic food is year round, they get it from somewhere. You get it in, so everybody has the choice, if they wanna get good food, they can go there.
Yeah. And that's
Not
true.
just Eugene.
Grocery outlet also often has some plant-based things. Some of it's the processed stuff, and it can't be dependable because I think we're getting overflow, but I've been surprised at grocery outlet that they actually do have quite a bit of grocery outlet, yeah.
I was thinking of national food. I mean, yeah, there's one of them sites. It's not Walmart, what's the other one? The store that they did it.
A Winco.
Wingo, yes, don't go to the organic section.
Small.
Atrocious, like, worst one I've ever seen.
Yeah, they do have a lot of, the thing I like about Winco is the bulk, you know, if there's some grains that you're like, well, I don't know, you know, cause the bobs and sometimes, you know, you don't wanna buy that big bag, you're like, I don't know if I like quinoa, I don't know if I wanna buy that big bag, you know, I don't know if I like groats, I don't know if what are groats, I don't know. I don't know if I like some 10 grain hot cereal or whatever, you know, Winco has a lot of that stuff. Buy a little bit, figure out if you like it or not. So I like it for that. That's one of the things where I'm gonna go visit my parents, they have a Winco and we're gonna visit the bulk section and try out some stuff. And I put a little baggie of, I really like the garbanzo bean pasta. So I took some from my house and I'm gonna take it there. Cause you know, they don't have to like it, so I'll make it for them, see if they. Okay, so I think we've hit on a lot of the ways that it's not supported. Anybody wanna add anything to that or feel pretty well covered there?
Well, you alluded, that, you know, big food just took big tobacco's tactics, and that they're huge opponents. They wanna sell their food, and it's government subsidized often, and so it's cheaper. And so, it's really, that's where the battle lies for them.
Yeah, no, it's really, I would like to see, I think I've heard Scott say it, but where's the broccoli subsidy? You know, like, let's get a broccoli or a cauliflower subsidy, that would be what I see. So, yeah, agreed, and I didn't even think about that until I said it, but the Oreo thing, it's kind of engineered, right? Like, they're like, a serving size is 2. Who can eat 2 Oreos, right? They want you to eat more Oreos and then you'll run out of Oreos and have to go buy more, or, you know, it's just it's insidious. So yeah, Michael Moss's books, which I think we have both of them, I recommend definitely a good read on what the companies have done to, you know, if you've ever wondered, why can I not just eat one Frito or one tortilla chip or one cookie or whatever? Well, because it's engineered that way, they want you to eat as much as possible. Next slide. Oh, if you don't know, that's a quokka in Australia, some kind of little marsupial. And just like the axolotl, their natural face just kind of looks like it's smiling, and so they're adorable. So yeah, any questions? Yeah.
Are you showing a movie here tomorrow night? It's, movie.
On Saturday night,
Saturday.
Forks Over Knives, we're gonna play that here.
And when does that start?
6:30 to 8:30 here, yep,
Saturday.
this coming Saturday, the 27th, and then the walk at South Eugene High School track at 11 o'clock that same day, so. We have 2 events on this coming Saturday. We'll serve some popcorn.
Nice. Debbie.
What gives you hope in your professional life and your personal?
I mean, where I get the most hope, I feel like the world is pretty heavy right now. So just personally, I try to get outside every day. So I didn't work today. Because also, why, when you travel, packing takes like 10 hours. And I'm just me, it's just me, it's just me, it's still like 36 hours anyway. So I took today off, and went to Pisgah this morning. And, I've really been enjoying, watching minnows. So finding little eddies, they're kind of disappearing, they're probably I don't know, they're starting their winter time. But, if you just sit and watch minnows, it's really relaxing. Very, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then get lucky and see a green heron, whatever heron I saw today that I couldn't identify. Little ground squirrels. I like to pet trees. Does anybody pet trees? You should pet trees. Pet them. The ponderosa is my favorite. The bark looks like puzzle pieces, and it sheds little puzzle pieces. Someday when I die, my family's gonna be like, oh my God, we have so many puzzle pieces. Why are there just millions of these tree pieces? Every single one of those tree pieces is a prayer that I have said. So there are thousands of them in my house. Yes, online question?
Nancy owns who says, I volunteer at a food pantry and they tend to have a good selection of veggies. And canned or dried beans. The downside is they also get out meat. And there's very little vegan choices.
Yeah. Yep, I think that's true. I know during the ice storm that we had a couple years ago, we were giving out food from Food for Lane County. And I had 2 different people that walked up that were plant-based. And it took because the food boxes were pre-made, right? And so it took a lot for me. I was like, wow, the universe is really working right now, that he walked up to me. And I know what he's talking about, what he's asking for, and I'm gonna take the time to work it out for him. And then there was another person, because he could have just walked up to somebody else and they would have said, I don't have time for that, And so, yeah, it's the food bank is pretty challenging. I think if you're I think about senior centers, like people who go to live in retirement living. I just can't even imagine how, I bet the food can be pretty challenging. I hope it's getting better, but I don't know.
It's horrifying.
Jamie, what do you really think?
I have a friend who's getting really sick. And it's been very hard to watch a few years.
Yeah. So another area. But yeah, so Debbie, what also gives, so that's just personal, I just have to be outside. And then this thing with my dad is, I think, pretty amazing, right? He is 70-some years old, living in Montana. He's been eating the standard American diet for his entire life. And he's making a change. I know that it could ebb and flow, but I just think, wow, that is so hopeful, and it is a similar story to what many of us have reported in here. Somebody has a little health scare, they figure out like, oh, this could really help. They see some of the benefits and then they stick with it and then they get all of the benefits. So that gives me a lot of hope. I also work with somebody, I don't want to say too much. I work with somebody and she said something very derogatory about vegans in a meeting in our public health department. And I actually gave her some feedback a couple years ago and just said, this is what the science says. That's irresponsible. You should not be saying something like that. She went to some Buddhist retreat recently and came back plant-based. Karma? Yeah, so those are hopeful.
What are you seeing in your professional job as far as trends to addictions such as gambling and sex and smoking? Where's the trends going? Up, down, sideways?
I think the trends are unfortunately pretty stable. We haven't seen a lot of ups or downs. I think everything's pretty stable. And as far as treatment, Scott and Charlie know this too, medication assisted treatment really changed the playing field, like for opiates. So when I first started doing my work 10, 12 years ago, we were really focused, 12-step abstinence, that's where we were. And then the medication assisted treatment started coming online, and medical community was pretty slow. Was my experience. And now it's just a given, right? Now it's just a given. The place at the county that we used to call the methadone clinic, they still have methadone, but it's now called medication assisted treatment. And the same for tobacco, nicotine replacement therapy is a viable treatment for tobacco usage. So I think, for good or for bad, the drug companies are in there, so I
Are you
don't-
seeing a decline in cigarette smoking and a rise in vaping? No decline in
Oh.
cigarette?
Not really,
I can't remember the last time I saw a person smoking a cigarette.
you're just not going to the, right? It's just- I work downtown and I regularly walk through a cloud, just from walking from my car to. And we have people who smoke on with their campus. I'm sure, Scott, you have people smoking probably in the parking lot. Strongly correlated with SEO, with social, with education and income.
It's less than it was in the fifties. In the fifties, half of Americans smoked. Now it's like something like, was it down to 20% or?
I think
18%?
that on that slide, 16%, if you look at the whole Oregon population, and then it goes up, like if you looked at African American people, LGBTQ, Hispanic, it's been go up with each population.
Where does Oregon stand as far as the country? Are we better, middle, worse?
I'm not totally sure. I would guess we're probably similar to other places. I think the South tends to have a little worse things, and Lane County tends to be worse in our state
Really?
on most things. Yes.
And you attribute that to
We don't. I mean,
Calvin Charlie?
there's a lot of reasons. If you think about illicit drugs, we're right on the I-5 corridor, and so there's a lot of stuff that gets transported up and down. Lane County has had a reputation for being pretty permissive about stuff. I don't know, think about alcohol. Alcohol associated with sporting events. What's the big thing we have here? Duck games.
Yeah.
So
Are they promoting alcohol at the games? I mean,
absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, because now you can't even go out, you can't leave this, if you leave the stadium, you can't come back in, so they're trying to get people to buy the beer and everything and the food in the stadium. I have season tickets, so I go to all the football games. Then the night games are worse because people drink all day and tailgate when they come in, and then they pay $12 for a beer in the stadium. Yeah.
Alcohol it's just when you start looking around, it's pretty insidious also, think about, when I think about when I was a kid, and going to theme parks, there was no alcohol at theme parks. Now you can get alcohol. Why do we need, aren't the rides enough? Like, why do we need alcohol at theme parks? And I thought the workers could tell you combining rides and alcohol. Any reason, not a good idea. I might have another slide, do we have another one? Oh, just some resources with the cute frog. I love frogs. I like all animals.
He's got his hands, he's doing the butterfly.
I know, right? So these the slides get posted. What do we do with the slides?
No, I mean, it's just you can, this is recorded, so you can go back and watch again.
But yeah, if you need anything, you're welcome to reach out to me. And a final cute slide. Choosing a plant-based lifestyle is an act of empowerment where we take control of our health and contribute to a more compassionate world, which I firmly believe. And so I hope that everybody will find whatever the hope you can find in your life. And, things do feel kind of heavy right now. So I feel like we're so fortunate where we live, that we have access to a lot of beautiful places. So that's what I wish for you and hope for you. I think that's it.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
Can I add
Thank you.
something?
You may.
Well, my closing comment is that one thing that's extremely hopeful is that we're all sitting here right now and we're talking about addiction and how people have gotten off of methadone and other things by using some different drugs that the medical professionals have brought forward, but we're all here right now learning about food as medicine. And that's the ultimate medicine, and we're learning how to leave so many of those things behind and just embrace what also is very beautiful, the food that grows in these gorgeous landscapes and these environments that we have here in this valley. So that's an awesome thing. Yes.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, everybody. And
was
we've
great.
been a little early, so it's not, is it dark? It's dark yet.
Back next week for physical activity and health. Okay.
No. One of your slides had. Photos, photos, so that's- I haven't seen that.
Is that the?
Oh.
Right.
Thank you for coming, everyone. We'll see you next week.